So if we could, if you want to look down, or even better, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, and the first skill is called the 3-minute breathing space. And it's an evidence-based skill from the area of mindfulness meditation. And again, it's a way of opening up to our thoughts and our feelings. So often there's a tendency to try to run from our feelings by snacking or buying things online or compulsive TV watching. And this can replace that. So again, if you just close your eyes, and in the first minute, if we will put all our attention on the movements of air through our body. So if you'll notice the cool air coming in through your nose, down into your lungs and lower belly. Breathing in air and breathing out stress. And our minds are always filled with chatter. And when you have a thought, just say to yourself, not breath, and bring your attention back to the air moving through your body. And in the second minute, we're going to check in with our emotional state. And just ask yourself, what emotions am I having today? Certainly we have many emotions throughout the day, but what's your mood state? What's your dominant emotion today? It could be anxiety. It could be frustration, sadness, loneliness, happiness. But how have you been feeling today? And where do you feel that emotion in your body? What's your dominant thought? Again, we have about 70,000 thoughts a day, but what's been most on your mind today? Anticipating the seminar, maybe a work project you're doing. Very likely the worry about what's going on with the COVID virus. But by acknowledging our emotions and our thoughts, it gives us some distance. It allows us to step back from the thought stream and realize that we can be in the present moment, and we don't have to be constantly caught up in our emotional state and our worries. And so for the third minute, we'll go back to our breathing. And if you would envision blue air, breathing in blue air, calm, cool blue air, and exhaling red, tense air. Breathing in blue, breathing out your stress. Now you can open your eyes if you can stretch a bit if you need to. And Patrick, if you go to the next slide, please. I just wanted to make a quick shout out to our nursing professionals. I know NC State, their allied folks are joining us today, and it's just an incredible honor to be able to assist. I have 3 sons, and 2 of them are on the front lines of this situation, which undoubtedly worries me to death, but I'm so proud of them. My middle son is a nurse specialist pulmonologist at Cleveland Clinic, and my youngest son, Brandon, who's online today, is a registered nurse on a COVID unit here at a local hospital. So again, just to all you health professionals, we so greatly appreciate your sacrifice. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the stress signature, and we're all aware of the stress triggers, but with this pandemic, there's just so many. The altered routines, financial worries, tense relationships, being separated from people, or possibly, as you see in the meme below, being quarantined with someone and kind of getting under each other's skin, perhaps. You might be homeschooling. Um, uh, the constant media reports. I know now that I switched to Spectrum, every time I turn on my TV, it goes right to the news, and it just seems to be coming at us from all sides. And what we'll focus on today is our emotional intelligence. We're all familiar with the idea of general intelligence, but emotional intelligence we feel is the number one skill to actually succeed at work, to succeed in our marriages and our families. And it's that capacity to recognize our own feelings, as we did with the 3-minute breathing space, and managing our emotions as well. Next slide, please. So there are two types of stress. Typically, we think of type 1 stress, and type 1 stress is immediate and identifiable. So let's say you're in the woods on a path and you see a bear. That is stressful, and your pulse surges and stress chemicals pour into your body. Your breathing becomes rapid, and other common examples would be turbulence on a plane, or maybe somebody cuts you off in traffic, possibly a upcoming surgery or a big presentation you're about to make. So type 1 stress, again, the source is clearly identifiable, and it tends to be short-lived. And our bodies have kind of a prehistoric fight or flight response to stress, which doesn't do us so much good dealing with the confluence of stressors that we're all facing right now. Type 2 stress is where I think we're all at with the COVID virus 19. The source is unclear. Again, it's so many factors. Health concerns, financial worries, unemployment possibly, conflict. So with type 2 stress, the source isn't clear, it's not identifiable, and it's not short term. It goes on and on. So in essence of what I'm going to do today is help us to learn some skills to break up type 2 stress and turn it into type 1 increments, if you will. First are the physical symptoms of stress, the headaches, the high blood pressure, nervousness, cold hands or feet, nausea, palpitations. You can see quite a list there. And let me teach you our second stress management skill, which is we refer to as tense to relax. And tense to relax is based on the idea that throughout the day, as you're experiencing these type 2 stressors, our body is tensing up. I remember when I first came to Mansfield in 1975, driving down Lexington Avenue, it seemed like there were more chiropractors than there were fast food restaurants. And that's because with stress, our muscles are tensing, and it leads to all kinds of aches and pains in our body and anxiety issues. So with tense to relax, what we're going to do, as always, we'll start with a couple of deep belly breaths. So if you'll breathe slowly, breathing through your nose, and draw the air down into your lower belly 2 or 3 times. And the reason we do this, the first muscle in the body to tense up when we're stressed is the diaphragm, a layer of tissue between the lungs and the stomach. And deep belly breathing relaxes the diaphragm, which sends an all's well signal to the brain. So it may seem contrite or unimportant, but the deep belly breathing is so important. And now we're going to do 2 muscle tension exercises. And if you have a neck problem or back problem, you may want to just observe this and make sure it won't injure you in any way. But basically, the first one, if you want to put your hands together in like a prayer position, and this is a 2-part muscle tension. We're going to press your hands together and raise your shoulders, almost like you have a string from your earlobes to the top of your shoulders. We're going to hold that to the count of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then let go. And just tune into the sensations of the tense muscles and then how your muscles feel when you relax. And let's try that one more time. Press and lift. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Relax. I don't know about you, but I can just kind of feel stress rolling off my back. I was down at the courthouse a couple months ago, and I taught a civic club this skill, and I saw a couple of the attorneys right before a court matter sitting doing this exercise. I got a chuckle out of that. The next stretching, tensing muscle is we extend our arms. We're going to arch our backs and tilt our heads back. So you make a fist, you tense all the muscles in your arm, and then you arch your back and tilt your head back. So if you're okay with that, we'll start with our belly breathing. And now tense and arch. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Relax. Again, tuning into the sensations of the tense muscles versus the relaxed muscles. And one more time. Arch and tense. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Relax. And again, just letting go of the stress. There's a pendulum effect I mentioned about our muscles tensing throughout the day, and that effect of tensing the muscles even further and then letting them go really has beneficial effects. And in just a little bit, I'll show you a link where you can get a full training in muscle tension relaxation. And okay, so next slide, please. So we talked about the physical symptoms. There's also cognitive symptoms referring to our thoughts and our mental processes. You may find that you're having trouble concentrating. You used to be able to read, and now you're distracted all the time. You may be having problems making decisions or thinking real clearly. Maybe you receive an email from work and you start to panic that it's bad news of some type. We may become forgetful or paranoid. So these are common symptoms that you may be experiencing. And then behavioral symptoms of stress would be anger, withdrawal, compulsive overeating. I was talking to a nurse administrator, and I asked her, well, I'll call her Carol. That's not a real name. I said, Carol, what do you do for you? You're working these long hours. You're taking care of so many patients and your family. What does Carol do for herself? And she said, I come home at night and I put on an oven mitt and I hold a pint of Ben & Jerry's Chunky Monkey and eat it. So I don't think that's the best coping skill, but that was her attempt at self-care. And I think we can all identify with the lure that is there right now for overeating or over drinking. And so that's something that we want to be really careful. And some of these stress busting techniques that we're learning are excellent ones to do if you find yourself having the urge to overeat or over smoke or drink. Next slide, please. I wanted to clarify, on the left you see the normal reaction. So just about all of us have some nervousness, some worry, some tension, our concentration's interrupted, some change in our eating and sleeping. So we don't need to be alarmed about that. We want to address it, but it's not something that we need to be super concerned about. However, for some of us, particularly if you have a pre-existing mental health issue, you could have an atypical reaction. And this would be anxiety or emotional upset that's persistent or excessive. It doesn't seem to lift. It's interfering with your ability to function at home or to do your work if you're working or caring for loved ones. Possibly real significant changes in eating or sleeping patterns. Maybe where your sleep is just highly disrupted. And certainly if you're having feelings of hopelessness or thoughts of self-harm, that's a definite cause for concern. And here in the county, I've been on the mental health board in the past. We have a fabulous crisis helpline that you can call, and we have the number listed there. So you can call your health provider, you can call the crisis helpline. It's available 24 hours a day, and they're excellent people and will take good care of you and link you to whatever resources are necessary. Next slide, please. Let me go to another stress management technique. And if you don't mind, go ahead and close your eyes again. And we refer to this as a mindfulness meditation skill or a grounding skill. And it's a skill to move you back into the present moment. So often as we're caught up in the news media and worries about loved ones, we just kind of live in our heads, if you will, with the same worries circling around. And so this grounding technique I'm going to show you grounds you. It centers you. It brings you back into your body, if you will, back into the present moment. And we do this by, we're going to direct our attention to our environment and to our senses. So first, I'd like you to listen and see if you can notice what sounds you can notice. For example, for me, I can hear a car driving by, maybe a clock ticking. So I'm going to be quiet and see if you can identify all the sounds that are around you. Next, we're going to go to the sense of touch. And just notice the sensation of your feet on the floor. Notice the sensation of your back on the chair, your legs on the chair. Notice the sensation of your clothing, maybe your sweater in your arms, dress in your back. Notice any smells. I'm sitting on a leather couch. I can smell the leather. I can smell some spring flowers. Faint smell of cologne I put on this morning. And you can open your eyes. So you can go through all five senses, sight and taste even, but it's a technique we refer to as grounding to kind of, again, shift your focus to your environment. And it has a very calming and relaxing effect. Next slide, please. So certainly increasing your feelings of safety is essential, and a lot of us are pretty good about that. Often the best antidote for worry is taking action. So, washing our hands as much as is appropriate, social distancing, keeping your immune system healthy, maybe eating properly, vitamin supplements, all these things can increase our sense of safety. We also need to set limits around news and social media. And I recommend that you don't spend over 30 minutes a day maximum. It's important to be updated, but it needs to be from a trustworthy source. And here in Richland County, we have Richland Public Health. They have an excellent website. The CDC, of course, excellent website. And maybe a particular news broadcast that you trust, but so much you need to be careful being caught up with social media and sources of media that are attempting to sensationalize, because they will frighten us and again constantly trigger these stress reactions. As we watch the media, we need to keep things in perspective. A problem as a psychologist, I know that the dynamic underlying anxiety and worry is we tend to overestimate the possibility of a negative thing happening. And of course, this is a very real threat. My father's 88 and had a pulmonary embolism, and so I'm terrified of him developing the COVID and becoming very sick. Um, um, but ask yourself, am I overestimating the risk to myself or my family? Secondly, how could I cope? So often we think that, maybe I'm definitely going to lose my job and I couldn't cope. I would end up living in a box beside the bike trail or something. So that's the dynamic related to anxiety, catastrophizing and underestimating our ability to cope. So be aware of that. And then ask yourself, what is a small positive action I could take? So me talking to my dad every day about, not going to the grocery store, the social distancing. Maybe if you have a neighbor you're concerned about, my neighbor just lost her husband, reaching out to that person, picking up sticks in her yard. Again, channeling the worry, which often is just cycling through our mind into constructive actions, can be very, very therapeutic for us. Next slide, please. Prioritizing self-care. Our offices are right here in the bike trail, and I don't know if I've ever seen so many people on the bike trail, which is a wonderful thing. And experts tell us we should move each day 30 minutes or more if we can, eating healthy foods, drinking a lot of water, sleep if you can try to go to sleep and wake up at a consistent time, getting fresh air, so important, just being in nature. So many of our meditations are going to be focused today on nature because it's such a comforting feeling. Watching caffeine. Caffeine produces the same kind of physical symptoms that are involved with stress and anxiety. So you want to be real careful about that. And again, avoiding stress eating and overuse of alcohol. Next slide, please. Next is staying connected. And let me show you what's called the loving kindness meditation, which is a favorite of many. So if you don't mind closing your eyes. And the loving kindness meditation is a way to cultivate compassion toward ourselves and toward other people. And it brings about a sense of safety. And I want you to begin by thinking about someone you love. And we're going to extend loving kindness to them. And in your mind, say to that loved one, may you be happy. May you be healthy and safe. May you feel peaceful and at ease. And now if you'll think of somebody, just whoever comes to your mind, somebody you don't know well, maybe the clerk at the grocery store, maybe your UPS person, just anyone, a neighbor you don't, just some person that comes to mind. And let's wish him or her a loving kindness. May you be happy. May you be healthy and safe. May you feel peaceful and at ease. And now if you could think about someone you're worried about, somebody who's definitely in need. Maybe they're not feeling well now, or a very vulnerable person. Picture somebody in your mind. It might be a widower, a widow, an elderly person. May you be happy. May you be healthy and safe. May you feel peaceful and at ease. And then finally, let's wish loving kindness toward ourselves. May I be happy. May I be healthy and safe. May I feel peaceful and at ease. and you can open your eyes. But that's a excellent exercise to practice daily. And researchers at uh, Stanford University, such as Dr. James Doty, has found that to have a powerful effect on our mood and our relationships. In terms of staying connected, sharing our fears and concerns with people we trust and being able to problem solve, so important. Number one buffer of stress is our social connection. There's so many video-based technologies. We're here on Zoom, but there's Google Hangout, Skype, FaceTime. I've talked to a lot of folks that have like grandkids or kids out of the area, and FaceTime has just been such a blessing for them to be able to connect. Sharing lighthearted jokes and humor. I have a text thread with my sons, and we'll just send funny memes or things we come across, just as a way to laugh a little bit, although it's difficult, and virtually connecting to support networks, faith-based communities. So many churches and synagogues are having online services and such, social organizations. I collect pinball machines, so I'm on a virtual pinball enthusiast site that's just an excellent source of support. So whatever you are into, raising golden retrievers, whatever it might be, I'm sure there's a Facebook group or something you might want to consider joining. It's just neat to be get our minds onto other topics about things that we're passionate about, rather than the constant focus on what's going on. Patrick, next slide, please. Meaningful tasks and roles. I teach at Ohio State University, Mansfield, and I replicated a positive psychology experiment, not scientifically, but just in a casual way in my class, where I have them design two types of Saturdays. On one Saturday, they are to do whatever they can that is fun. So have breakfast at the Mansfield restaurant, and maybe hike at Mohican, or play putt-putt golf, or go to the movies, but just a day of absolute pure fun, video games, whatever. And then on another Saturday, I'll have them do some volunteer work, maybe raking up some backyards of shut-ins, or whatever it might be, but a day filled with volunteer works. Well, interestingly, similar to what the national research by Dr. Martin Seligman has shown, that both the day of total pleasure and the day of volunteer work have an immediate boost of mood. So students report a day later feeling significantly happier because of the Saturday that they had. However, the volunteer Saturday leads to mood elevation for a month afterwards. So I can't emphasize the importance of meaningful tasks and roles, kind of getting out of the shell that we live in, especially when we're anxious, and touching other lives. So this would be coordinating delivery of groceries. So many people still don't know about Kroger's click list, or how Meijer will bring things out of your car. I know most of us do, but there still are people that don't. Performing yard work with all these storms, people have sticks and branches in their yards, and my youngest son and I went around the neighborhood picking those up a couple days ago. It's just good exercise. It helps people. Reaching out to people who might be isolated. My late wife, Susan, was a registered nurse, and she was so courageous throughout her battle with stage 4 cancer. And I'll never forget the day that she was told that the cancer had moved from her lungs and her liver into her brain. Just, knowing that she was 60 days away from passing. I heard her out in the kitchen, and I went out to see what she was doing. And she was making a batch of homemade vegetable soup for a friend of ours, Johan Mills, who had knee replacement surgery. So here she is, facing the end of her life, but she knew the power of serving others, and she channeled her energy into making that soup and lifting the spirits of someone else going through a difficult time. Next slide, please. Also, in addition to meaningful routines, mastery and accomplishment. If you're like me, you've probably reorganized a closet or two, or cleaned up the garage, painted a room, maybe prepared the garden a little bit. Um, if you just sit all day and watch reruns of The Twilight Zone, you may enjoy that, but we all need a sense of mastery and accomplishment, especially if we're laid off from work, something that gives us a sense of self-esteem. And then also personal growth and pleasure, trying a new recipe, playing an instrument, reading the Harry Potter series, creating a town in Animal Crossing. We certainly want to do things that we enjoy and give us pleasure. So balancing the meaningful, the master and accomplishment, pleasure and growth, and building a little bit into each day, a huge stress reliever for us. Next slide, please. So I still have a couple more coping skills I'm going to show you, but I recommend you select one of them that becomes kind of your go-to coping skill. And on our website, New Directions for Life, we have 3 stress management programs. Stress release is guided visualizations, and I'll do one of those in just a moment. 3 minutes to relax are a series of meditations and mini relaxers. And then the third one, it's called progressive muscular relaxation, ties back to that tense and relax. So these are free, and you can download them onto your phones, iPods, or whatever. And I encourage you to develop a daily practice that you can, again, use throughout the day. But if you could close your eyes, or at least look down again, this is one of my favorites. It's called the positive emotion refocusing technique. And as always, we begin by bringing our attention to the movements of the breath. And as you breathe in, say the word 1. And as you breathe out, say the word relax. Breathing in and breathing out. And now I want you to picture in your mind's eye the face of someone you love, someone who deeply cares about you. And it can be a pet. Maybe you choose your cat or dog. But picture that face looking at you and smiling at you. Look into their eyes, smiling with all their radiance. And I believe dogs smile too. And I want you to just feel the love, feel the warmth of that love. And if you'll take your right hand and put it over your heart, just allowing that love to enter your body and to calm you. And if you go back to your breathing, we're going to do PERT again in a little different way, a second version of this. Breathing in, saying the word 1. Breathing out, saying the word calm. And now I want you to picture one of your favorite places in nature, a place that just fills you with awe. Maybe the parking lot beside Clear Fork Reservoir, watching the sunset. Maybe it's being atop Mount Gee's by Malabar Farm. Maybe it's Mohican River, or Kingwood Garden. But just picture yourself there. And let's say it's Kingwood, just all the flowers, the amazing tulips and daffodils. Allow yourself to smell the flowers, smell the fresh air, feeling the soft grass under your feet. Just remind yourself you can go back to this special place anytime you need to, anytime you need a break. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. And Patrick, if we can go to the next slide, please. And finally, I want to talk about cultivating positivity and hope. There's so many neat wellness practices. The simple skill we've probably all heard about, gratitude journaling. And again, with my sons and wife, we will, when something good happens, we try to do this each day. We'll just send a text thread about it. And again, something very simple. Doesn't need to be some major accomplishment or breakthrough. But again, just orienting ourselves to maybe smelling my mom's delicious lasagna, just sharing that experience of walking into her house and smelling the lasagna. Just those special moments that it's so easy to hydroplane over when we're living life in our head. And something my wife always said, we have a brief video about her life on the website, Trapped, which is a very powerful, inspirational 4-minute movie about dealing with extremely challenging times in a graceful way. But she talked about perfect moments and perfect days. That she said, as long as she didn't feel too overwhelmed with pain, she tried to have some connection, some savoring of something special every day, whether it be the sunset at Clear Fork or playing with the dogs or whatever it might be. But such an important skill. And I wanted to close before we take questions with a story, lesson that my grandfather taught to me about celebrating life and hope. My grandfather had become very ill when I was 8 years old, and we knew that he didn't have real long to live. And he came to Mansfield. He lived in Akron, and took me to Mount Gee's. And I was a little guy, and we decided to climb to the top of Mount Gee's, which for him with his health and me at my age was quite an undertaking. It was about 85 degrees and humid, and we climbed, and finally got to the top. And we laid back in the grass, and our backs got a little itchy from the sweat and the grass, but it was just an amazing day, beautiful summer day, and time just seemed to stand still. And as we were laying there, we looked up at the clouds, and it was one of those days of the big, billowy, cottony clouds, and it was one of the most incredible things in my life. A cloud went by that looked exactly like Abraham Lincoln's profile, like on a penny. And we both saw it at the same time. We were both amazed. Our jaws just dropped. And not long after that, a cloud formation came by, and it was a bunny jumping in midair. Again, just perfectly formed. Unbelievable, unreal. We had to pinch ourselves as though, make sure we weren't dreaming. But Grandpa was sick, and I was getting of the age where I started to doubt Santa Claus and maybe becoming a little skeptical. And I had a thought come over me, which really brought on a sadness. I thought, these are just clouds. Right at that moment, my grandpa grabbed a hold of my arm, and he said, Blake, someday someone will tell you that these are just clouds, but don't you believe them. So at this time, if anyone has some questions or comments, or if you'd like to share strategies that have been beneficial for you, we'd be happy to discuss those.
I have unmuted everybody so that you can access your own microphones at this time.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes, if anyone has any comments or questions about the techniques, or maybe a stress management practice that you use that you'd like to share with others, or a struggle or concern, anything at all, we'd be happy to discuss that.
Like, I just want to say thank you. I think there was some really great techniques in there. I myself have used that kind of visioning of my favorite place when I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. Certainly recently, but at other points in life, and it is amazing to just you can almost feel your body just relax a little bit when you can plug yourself back into those moments.
Yes, that's so true. So true.
I have a question, Dr. Wagner.
Yes, Lisa.
This is Lisa. So I guess I haven't been prepared enough to do click list, because every time I try to do it, it's like 8 days out. So then I find myself having to go to the grocery store. And last time I went, I had my cart full, and I get up to the register and I looked around, and everybody, or half of them, have masks on. Some people are obeying the distancing rules and some aren't. And I just was overwhelmed with panic of, I got to get out of here. And here I am in a line with a cart full of groceries.
Right.
So can you talk about, and I have to go today, and I'm dreading it. Because again, I don't have my click list ready.
Right.
And I need things. So I'm dreading going there and kind of freaking out in the middle of the store.
Right, right.
Looks like an end of the world movie, kind of, with everybody all wrapped up and.
Sure, sure. Typically, I see a lot of people like with panic disorder, and typically it is so crucial when you're just referring to panic for people to stay in a situation and allow your anxiety to build up. And if you stay there, it actually will come down on its own. But what happens is we don't believe that, because our rational brain is being overridden by our emotional brain, and we attempt to escape the situation. Now, what you're saying is a little bit different, because I don't want you to put yourself in an exposure situation, and I don't want you to be in a line. If people are not obeying the social distancing rules, I think it'd be prudent, to move away and maybe shop somewhere else, if you would have to. But Lisa, if you could get yourself a safe distance away, and just maybe the initial skill, the 3-minute breathing space. Now, I don't mean to get down in the lotus position and roll out your yoga mat or anything, but just allow yourself to ask yourself, what are you feeling? And allow yourself to feel it in your body, and acknowledge what you're thinking. Your emotional state will calm down, I promise you. And if you can safely get back in the line where it isn't so crowded, if you can do that, because the more we avoid, the worse it gets. Think when you were a little girl and you went to the high dive for the first time, and you got in a long line, you climbed up to the top of the diving board, and you looked down, you thought, holy smokes, I can't handle this. And then everyone's groaning in line as you climb back down. Well, that's the principle of negative reinforcement, meaning that relief that your body received by escaping the dangerous situation makes it much more likely that you will avoid that situation in the future. So if you can go to Kroger's and pause, allow yourself to feel the emotions, acknowledge them, and then safely get into the line. I highly encourage it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments or questions? I appreciate the kind words that people are sending. And I think, Jody, we're gonna, Patrick is recording this and they can see it on the chamber website later if they have a loved one or something wanted to check it out. Is that right?
Yeah, we're gonna figure out, we'll get it up on the website, and then I'll probably share it in one of my upcoming emails as well. So I know there's been a lot of things happening at the same time in the community. So, but this is great stuff, and we definitely want to get this out to folks.
Sounds great. So.
All right. Well, if unless anyone else has a question, I will put a plug. We are going to do another one of these. We're aiming to do it next week. Little different topic, talking to employers. We know many employers are dealing with obviously anxious employees, employees who in some cases have had to be laid off because of the change. So we're going to be bringing some resources to the table specifically to help you as employers share them with your folks. So we're hoping to have someone talk about what is available, obviously through unemployment, but also through social services. I know I've had a lot of conversations with business owners and bosses that are very worried about their employees and how do they keep tabs on them and help them through this time. So that's what next week will be about. We'll have some more details about that soon, but should be next Thursday at 1 o'clock. Blake, thank you for taking your time. I think this was your lunch hour, so certainly appreciate that.
Sure thing. Anytime, Jody.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wagner.
Sure thing.
Appreciate everything you do. All right, so I will say adios to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at a future Chamber Digital Academy.
Bye.
Bye.